I don't know if you realize this happened, but there was no 5 recently released albums that you should check out last week. Oh no, the fucking heresy! Well, anyway, we're gonna make up for that. There's 10 of them this week, and they're actually from a couple of different points in time, so I'm maybe cleaning up some messes. It doesn't really matter. The reviews will be a little bit shorter, but here are 10 albums that were recently released sometime in the past that you should definitely check out. We start off today with Equilibrium with their brand new album Armageddon, which just came out within the past week. Now, these guys are an epic folk / Viking metal band, so if you like a band such as Moonsorrow, chances are Equilibrium is going to be up your alley. If you like a band such as Tear, chances are Equilibrium is going to be up your alley. And epic is certainly a great way to describe these guys, with albums such as Saga's Rockin' My World, almost 10 years ago. It's been a long time. But at any rate, this is a terrific album in Armageddon, an 11-track affair where most of the tracks hover between the 4 to 5 minute mark, but really have a great sense of purpose. Each and every one of these tracks has a terrific, riff, pattern to it, an overall construction that gives it a lot of boost. It gives it a lot of energy, a lot of kinesis, and based around that, each song feels very unique, but also very worthy of the listen that you're giving it. Now these tracks are, for the most part, in a different language, so I'm not butchering the language. Check out track 2 and 3, also check out Born to Be Epic, Pray, and then the very final cut, which is in English, Eternal Devastation, is more than 7 minutes in length, the longest song on this album, and I love its exercise in pace and its exercise in tension and mood. It's something that's very well handled, very well crafted. Check out Equilibrium with Armageddon. We have a special guest for this one. It's Nemo. Hi. So Nemo's going to help me out as we talk about Dead Ringers by Horseback. Now, a couple of years ago, they had an album out entitled The Invisible Mountain that definitely made some waves. They're sort of a droney band that does some electronic stuff, and Nemo's trying to get to my computer, which is no bueno. And they just have a very interesting sound to them. They're sonic explorers, and this is another album that seems to showcase that. A lot more focus on some of those more electronic beats, a little bit more of the keyboard work that you hear, but they still have the option and the opportunity to drone out a little bit with tracks such as the chord itself, either that or In Another Time, In and Out of Form. Now, the very final cut on this disc is entitled Descended from the Crown, and this is a 16.5-minute long exercise in what I would consider to be semi-minimalism. And I call it that because it reminds me a bit of the stylings that you heard from In the Library Loft by Toby Driver back in the 2000s, where it just sort of goes off on its own little way, and it's very freeform. This is very much a challenging listen, so if you are game for something that's out of your wheelhouse, this may be a good one to check out. And now we bid farewell to Nemo. Say bye, Nemo. Bye. Tarja's The Shadow Self is next on our list, and actually for this, I'm going to bring back in Nemo, considering there is a Nightwish song entitled Nemo. And no, that's actually not how he got his name. We got a preview of The Shadow Self a little bit earlier from Tarja, an EP that was reviewed that was fairly decent. This full length definitely has a lot of the same ideas present on that, so there is a lot of tracks here that feel very apt for either soundtrack, either that or feel very much like this could be placed on the stage and would be an absolutely magnificent experience. What does happen a little bit is that Tarja's voice is, it has such a deep emotion to it, and also a deep, difference to it, where she's able to go in various directions that it could sometimes get a little bit lost in itself. And on a longer album like this, you want to maintain a lot of that attention rather than feel like you sort of lost it a little bit. And I feel that at times here on The Shadow Self that does occur. But aside from that, it's a fantastic showcase that Tarja still has one of the best voices in metal or otherwise in the world right now. And it's certainly one that any budging, female vocalist should take a look at and study very, very closely. Songs such as Too Many, which is the 12.5-minute long finale, are very, very well done. Love to Hate is another excellent choice, as is The Living End. Diva might be one, however, that may become the true anthem for a lot of people, as Nemo attempts to scavenge his way to the power button. Check this one out. Number 4 on our journey is SYNERGI with the Distant Origins EP, and this is a premiere because this is the first time I've ever talked about these guys. They are pretty brand new. I think this is their first ever release, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a 6-track EP, And they combine what it feels like metalcore, a little bit of post-hardcore. It does have some progressive influence here and there, especially on a couple of the longer cuts that are featured on this EP. And their sense of chaos is one that is very tightly balled up and well put to good use. And I think they're going to attract a lot of attention because they have a very, reflective sound of the genre, and they already sound like seasoned professionals as opposed to feeling like they are sort of brand new and just chaotically putting things together. It has a very professional gloss to it, which I do kind of dig. And I like the fact that they sort of hybrid together the ideas, which is not necessarily new. However, they just do it in a way that is well presented. The one track that I highly recommend if you guys want to scope out something from this band, if you don't decide just to pick up the whole entire EP, is Radiance. Radiance is a near 7-minute cut. It's the last track off of this EP. And this is the one that just feels like SYNERGI made the use of all of the tools in their toolkit. And it really shows what this band is capable of doing. And based off of that, they have a pretty bright future ahead. So this is definitely an EP just to scope out if you're curious. And it's also a band, the name you should remember and you should watch because we might be talking about them later on down the line. The rains came right before the recording of our 5th album of the week, and that's Your Wilderness by the Pineapple Thief. This is an 8-track affair from a band that almost instantly from the opening notes of In Exile, the first cut off of this album, you know it's going to be a very moody affair. If you've ever wondered what it would sound like if Steven Wilson and Radiohead perhaps had some sort of twisted brainchild, Your Wilderness by the Pineapple Thief might be the most accurate representation of that collaboration, although it will be one that has quite the same weirdness that Radiohead sometimes does offer to the table. However, that soft sort of emotional hum that you constantly get from those two projects is something that you've constantly gotten from the Pineapple Thief over their career, which has been one that has sort of under the radar been very, very well received and semi-well documented. They are a very good progressive rock project that has a lot of terrific tools to offer. I love the fact that this album is able to sort of flow seamlessly from one emotion to the next. And while there are some cuts that may offer a little bit of hope amid the very sort of dreary, very melancholy atmosphere that this album largely represents, it's one that feels very representative of being lost in a wilderness. It is something that consistently, whenever it changes register, whenever it shifts tone, keeps you on board for the ride as opposed to distancing you further and further from the composition. Either way, this 8-track affair is one that needs to be experienced by progressive rock fans, and for those that are curious about the genre, this is a great place to start only because it introduces you to some of these landmark emotions that are transmitted through sound and could actually introduce you to a brand new subgenre obsession. Check out Your Wilderness by the Pineapple Thief. Our next exploration is another premiere. This is Darkher with their album Realms, and this is a premiere because they were nice enough to stream this. This doesn't come until this coming Friday the 19th, so we're full of firsts here on this episode. And this album, it was described by one as a ghostly fairy tale, or a ghostly, book of fairy tales, and it definitely has that reputation to sort of go by it, considering this is an album that, unlike that Pineapple Thief disc we just talked about, feels like it is intentionally a little bit distant from the listener. And it's one whose dissonance really reigns supreme. It's filled with these sort of soft, off-putting, moments of music in the background with these ethereal female vocals sort of hauntingly, registering above it all in order to sort of be your guide throughout this journey, almost like being through, traveling through some sort of spooky forest, either that or a realm that is rich with smoke and the unknown. There's not much of a path to tread, and every step feels like it is extremely harrowing. I love the fact that this disc is able to really pull that off, and it made me really want to go back to 2014 and listen to Esoteric Warfare by Mayhem, considering that album was one where at every turn it could have just taken a sudden departure and could have just surprised you out of nowhere with something that was not only melancholic, but something that was also exceptionally sort of creepy, either that or, really brandish upon you a less than ideal setting. And that's something that this album also does very well. It's very haunting, it's very melancholic, but it's got this subtle, like, sort of genius behind it based off of that. It captivates you, and that captivation certainly helps out. Songs such as Hollow Veil is one that just instantly sort of recognizes this notion that almost combines Oliver's sort of sonic exploration with, again, some of those mayhem ideas from Esoteric Warfare. You don't hear growls, it's not something that's that sinister. It's instead one that takes avant-garde art to a brand new level, and you hear some harsh tones every now and again, and whenever they do come out, it hits like a crescendo that seems very similar to an Elend album. God damn, this is really, really good, and I encourage you to check out Realms by Darkher. We have another EP to talk about. This one dropped on the 8th of August. This is ENEFERENS with The Inward Cold. And wow. Okay, so Black Gaze, we've said, has had just a phenomenal year. It's really been a breakout year for this genre. And this is one that really adds in a little bit of doom. That kind of reminds me a bit of maybe like an Ahab or something like that. But just, wow, this is 3 cuts. All 3 of them are 11 minutes or more, and the very first song on this disc, The Mermaid, is a stunner. This is an absolute masterpiece. You go through, and this is very much a tale of 2 sides of the song. The first side being very calm, a little bit more along the register of, sort of some doom metal, and then it thrusts into, some real black metal style, music to really complete this task. But the portion right in the middle, around the 4 to 5 minute mark, whenever those vocals first hit you, it is gorgeous. It is something that can shift your emotion. It can move you. It is incredible. This is terrific work. This is a one-man project based out of Montana, and I must say, there must be some sort of magic in Montana for the production of this track. Now, Winterheart and the Sky are no slouches as well. They both sort of follow similar philosophies, where part of the song has a little bit more of a softer edge, while the black metal really comes forward with some of the other moments that these songs give. Winterheart starts off a little bit more heavy. In fact, it reminds me of some early Opeth songs, which is a really good start. And then whenever it gets into the Sky, it's one that sort of guides its way from a soft beginning through this sort of up and down emotional journey that just ends very, very powerfully. Man, this is one that a lot will sleep on. Don't do that. Really, really bad decision. This is one that you need to check out. And once again, we do sort of have to just sit in awe with what Black Gaze and, this style of music has really been able to offer to the world of heavy metal in 2016. So many great peers, which means a great future. LACRIMAS Profunda with Hope Is Here, a band that started off with melodic death and doom roots that now has transformed into more of a gothic rock project, and it's just a really, really cool, interesting transition considering how some of their older albums from the late 90s really sound going into Hope Is Here, and hearing the sound that definitely feels a little bit closer geared to maybe some like alternative metal, definitely one that takes that gothic term to heart, and it's a very strong release. It's 13 tracks, 45 minutes in length. The Worship of Counting Down is one of the longest cuts on the album at more than 6 minutes in length to start this sucker off, and it's certainly one that is added by some of the softer vocals that you get on this, the very passionate vocals that you hear that surround this music that definitely has that sort of gothic exterior. I'm thinking about Paradise Lost's gothic years, only tuning it a little bit more closely toward rock as opposed to metal. It's a very cool little thing to hear. But then we get into a track such as No Man's Land that sort of has that powerful keyboard that's really serving as one of the frontward portions of this song and is guiding the vocals as well as guiding the overall scope of this composition. And it reminds me why this style of music can be so much fun. And it definitely reminds me of why a lot of folks will listen to some of the older, like, first initial albums of him and really, really like them, because there's just a certain strength that is really present that is both beautiful as well as it is really just sort of devastating. It has a great dual effect. Overall, this is a disc that is going to make a lot of folks pretty happy. If you like this style of music, if you've heard of this band, it's for you. It definitely is. Enjoyable listen from front to back. June is recent, correct? Bear with me. So, yeah, it's been 2 months, but the name of this band is Airbag, the name of the album is Disconnected. It was released in June, but here we are in August talking about it. Yes, that's Airbag like the Radiohead song, Disconnected like the Fates Warning album, And yeah, this is a progressive rock band. I love me some progressive rock, and I know a lot of you out there do as well, so I certainly wanted to talk a little bit about this one. I love what these guys do, considering they have sort of these soft Wilson-like tones that you would hear, whether it be in his solo work, either that or with some of the work with Porcupine Tree. I think especially of some of the 90s work with the exploration of sound that certainly caused some of those comparisons to Pink Floyd. We'll get to them in a second. I love how Killer starts off with this very almost relaxed tone of somebody admitting their predatory nature, and it's one that sets up the lyrical theme of this song very well. And I dig this fact that this one also spans 9 minutes to open up this album very strongly. Really, the range of the timings for these 6 tracks are from 5 to 13. More on that 13 song in a little bit. But I like Slave, mainly because it's the 3rd track on this album. It shares a name with a track off of The Congregation by Leprous, and it has that same moody atmosphere. If you remember that song, it was extremely seductive and had this sort of, power and sort of untold melancholy all to it that sort of just crushed your soul. It doesn't have that same register here with the Airbag track, but it's instead one that motions with that same sort of seductive rhythm, only done so in a different way, and it's extremely enjoyable in the process. Getting to the title track, Disconnected, this is one where we just lost the band Beardfish. They just decided to hang it up, but this is almost like Beardfish, their softer moments, really interloped or eloped with Pink Floyd in order to craft a 13-minute long masterpiece. Just a fantastic track that blends progressive rock very well with some of the spacey elements and harbingers that you got with Floyd's material. Overall, for a progressive rock disc that was released 2 months ago, I'm ashamed that I didn't get to it until just now. You should definitely scope this one out and help me forgive myself for that. Whew. We finish off our long journey today with Russian Circles and their album Guidance. Now, these guys are an instrumental post-rock project that have been wowing audiences for, a little while now. They've definitely established a name for themselves. And this 7-track album is going to sort of further that legend and really expose their blend to new fans that decide to check them out. That's you guys! So hopefully you guys give this an examination. Very first cut, Asa, immediately makes me think of Asa Akira, because that's the first name. And she's pretty darn hot. But no, the music itself is definitely a softer register that is able to then elevate itself up into a very metallic principle, almost like a post-metal ideal. With the very next cut, should I say, 4L, that really offers that almost instantaneously, and then you get that in, little spurts and bursts here and there and everywhere throughout the rest of this 7-track affair. That was intentional rhyming, unintentionally. I like Overboard a lot on this album. This is the 5th track on this disc. It's 5.5 minutes, and it's one that actually gives you sort of that notion and that feeling of being shipwrecked, either that or just sort of drifting away throughout an ocean. And in this case, it feels like just an ocean of sound. You're almost awash and lost at sea. But these soft sort of tones are guiding you toward land, either that or guiding you toward somewhere that will be your salvation. And really at the end of this song, you hear some very hopeful and very, happy tones that almost suggest that you did make it to that final destination. Either way, very powerful work, very cool band, definitely one that I highly recommend. Guidance by Russian Circles, definitely check it out today. And for those of you who want a bonus 11th, I'm not going to talk about it at length, but Young the Giant just released Home of the Strange. They're a rock band. They had that song Cough Syrup, that was pretty big, as well as My Body. This is their 2nd album with Fueled by Ramen. It's okay. I think it has some pretty decent material on it. I'm a fan of the band. I don't know if you guys are or not. If you want a rock band to scope out, that might be one for you. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 10 recently released albums that you should check out. I know this is a long video. I apologize for that. I will do my due diligence in the future and ensure that these videos are weekly instead of making massive 20-plus minute, I'm sure, affairs that will no doubt be getting a lot of complaints in the comments. What are some albums that you're excited about that are coming out this Friday, next Friday, maybe a Friday in October? Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and I am going to take a much needed break. I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.